I am so excited, Peeps, for this one. We've got a very special guest who has been brought to the fore by Ginger Bailey, whose information will be on the screen and in the description box. We now present JULIANNE THON. And I just can't wait to hear more about you. I just got to telling her, oh my God, I know that Erik crushes on you. And hi, Erik, I love you.
Hi, Mama, I love you.
What does he say about
He's
that?
very excited. He's very excited, and he says, "Oh yeah, oh yeah,
I know. I
oh
never
yeah,
tried.
oh
Listen,
yes."
Erik, I'm old enough to be your grandmother, so
there's no way.
Not. He says there's no age in spirit.
That's right. That's right. Good comeback. Good
I'm
comeback.
really glad to know
He's
that.
holding on to that one. He goes, I'm holding on to that one.
But you have a particular set of skills, as they say on Liam Neeson says, that I find very interesting. And I would just love to hear about how you guys met. I mean, first your little journey. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey, and then we'll delve into your gifts?
Sure. It was an amazing story, really and truly. It started back in 1995 when my son, Evan, was born. He was a beautiful gift to my husband and I and to this world. But as Evan began to grow older, we noticed that he was not meeting his developmental he's not meeting his developmental milestones.
Yeah.
Therefore delayed. So we kept taking him to doctors, and doctors kept saying, "Oh, don't worry about it. You're really ahead of the game here. Don't worry, don't worry." And it kept getting worse and worse and worse. So then finally we started taking him to specialists. And at that time we were living in Arizona, and we must have taken him to every specialist there in the state, and they could not find a diagnosis. And we knew he was going to need therapies and all kinds of extra work, but we couldn't get any of that without a diagnosis. Elisa, you probably know how that works.
Oh, good. Yeah. Why don't doctors listen? What is it? Some rare genetic?
Well, they never found out, and I'll get to that. But sort of we exhausted all possibilities in that state. So we started flying Evan all over the United States to see geneticists and neurologists, and it was really tough, and it kept coming up the same thing. Every test was normal. Every blood test was normal. We even did
so weird.
We did a chain mutation study. That was normal. So we couldn't find anything genetically or organically that was a problem. So I remember going home one afternoon and putting Evan down for a nap, and I was really distraught, and I was so full of fear, and I was so scared. And I thought, what am I going to do for my baby? And I got ready to meditate. And this voice came to me and said, this is not about a diagnosis. You need to learn to be with your baby boy in the present and find joy. And through that, you need to learn to heal yourself and others. Well, I had so much going on. I was like, well, that was interesting. And where to go from here? And then I thought about it for a while. And I thought, that voice wasn't mine. That was a voice. Yeah. So I just decided, okay, that's what we're going to do. And Evan and I started having all kinds of fun, and we found different therapists. We tried this and that and this and that. And he started this laughter that was amazing, that even though he was nonverbal, he would laugh so hard and get the entire room of people that were working with him just rolling over. It was very sweet. So we knew he was special. So we spent many, many years just doing that. And I began to learn all kinds of self-healing and the healing of others in terms of different modalities that were either holistic or in terms of a naturopathic road. So it was beautiful. And we ended up changing some protocol within the school districts there and working with some of the teachers, because, back then in the 90s, and beginning of 2000s, we didn't know that much about children with special needs, but they knew that if you had this diagnosis, they were going to put you in this box and teach you this way. If you had this diagnosis, they were going to put you in this box. And he was an anomaly, and he was very different. You couldn't fit Evan in any box.
Mm.
So I was there to show people, I can see now in retrospect, to show people that this is how you have to see all of these beautiful children.
Yeah.
You have to look at them as individuals, and you've got to figure out how to heal them from the heart. So just listen to them, especially the nonverbal children.
Got
Watch the energy, listen to, they'll tell you who they are and what they need.
Mhm.
Well, one thing led to another, as happens when source and universe is involved. And next thing I know, we find ourselves testifying before we had moved to Colorado, before the Colorado legislation. And we were trying to get some laws changed because here it was very difficult to get any kind of financial support
Okay.
for families with children with disabilities. And it hit us particularly hard because they canceled our insurance. So we didn't know how we were going to pay
Oh, man.
get all of these different therapies. And there were a lot. It was involved. So we got a couple of laws changed.
Oh, wow.
That's
What an
good.
activist. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, we got a couple, and it was an amazing journey. And about I think it was on the 29th of April. We were on the front lawn of the Colorado Capitol, and the governor signed in the last law that we had worked in from bill to law. And 2 nights later, my husband went to check on Evan, and Evan had passed. He had gone to spirit.
Why? How? Just because the contract was finished?
We did an autopsy, and they could not find anything. They thought that perhaps his heart had stopped.
Well, obviously, contract. Oh, I'm so sorry. What an awful club.
Yeah.
Well, it is a club, and although our sons had different lives, different purposes, and they left us in a different way, I had a sweeter passing to deal with regarding his transition than you did.
Mm.
But boy, you couldn't have told me that at the time. When
No.
you was a child, as you know, Lisa,
No.
it just doesn't get any worse than that.
No. Worst thing that can happen to a human being, for sure.
Yeah.
It really is. But here's where it starts to get good. So, I was going through this grieving process.
Yeah.
And I was having trouble meditating and all, because that's tough when you're grieving. But somehow I just knew there was this push that you've got to figure out what it is you're supposed to do.
Mm.
So I started meditating again. And again, that same voice that had come to me 9 years prior said, you've got to learn to move forward. This is not, if Evan taught you anything in this world, it's to move forward.
Mm.
So I decided, okay, I'm going to go back to school, and I'm going to get my teacher's license. And I started teaching, and I did that for 9 years.
Mm.
And it was interesting because I started out in secondary, but I ended up teaching third graders, which was how old Evan was when he passed away.
Oh.
Wow.
It was very, very sweet. But I noticed that when I was teaching, I was having trouble going with the rules and regs that they had as a teacher.
Mhm.
Changed so much. Education is so different, and you're not really free to use your creativity as you need.
It's just
I had an intuition that had developed by that point where I could look at some of these children and I could tell that they were needing a lot of extra therapies, a lot of extra help. So then the pandemic hit.
Oh, God.
And
Yeah.
like so many of us did, I had another awakening that said, you need to go back to what you were doing when you were healing others, hands-on type of healing, dealing with the heart, dealing with the spirit, knowing that there was a spiritual foundation there. So, man, I'm telling you, I started studying different types of hypnosis. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but Alba Weinman has a huge presence on YouTube, and she is a introspective hypnosis
So
practitioner.
I don't know her.
Yeah,
Alba or Alva?
Alba.
Okay.
With a B.
I'm sure a lot of your listeners will know who she was.
Oh,
And
probably.
I came across her and I started watching. And why was I watching hypnosis? What would make me want to watch hypnosis? I mean, that was just one of those situations where, again, I know it was Evan going, come on, Mom, you need to do this here. You need to do this. So I emailed her and I said, I think you were a QHHT person. That was the whole Dolores Cannon thing. I
Oh,
don't
yeah,
know if-
right.
And I said, would you suggest that I study that? And she said, based on your background, I think you might be more interested in introspective hypnosis. So I think at that time they weren't offering it online. So anyway, during the pandemic, I started taking transpersonal hypnosis. And that was a wonderful foundation, except that it dealt more strictly with Jungian philosophy, which is great because that's the archetypes.
Yeah.
Freudian and Ericksonian. It was good, but it was really coming from more of a psychological standpoint. And I just knew there was something more.
Well, what is transpersonal? I don't know what that is on hypnosis.
It's just a way of saying that you deal with the individual and their personal spirit, their personal subconscious, rather.
Oh, okay.
So I thought, I wasn't able to get to what I felt was the healing that a lot of these clients needed.
Yeah.
So I went back and I looked at Alba's email from a few years prior to that, and I saw introspective hypnosis. So I went online and I saw that I could sign up for a class that was taught by Antonio Sangio. He is Peruvian. He lives here in the United States, and he's an amazing man. And he and Alba both learned QHHT and introspective hypnosis at the same time from a man named Aurelio Mejia, who was Colombian.
Oh, wow.
He's very, very, his name is very important throughout South America, South and Central America, and it's becoming more and more here in the United States. So anyway, I took his class, and that was exactly where I was supposed to be. I could see. So I started working with people, and I began to see things that I was shocked. I mean, I knew that this was an amazing modality to help people deal with things like depression and anxiety, people that had unexplained behaviors, diagnoses that doctors couldn't find a reason for.
Wow.
So
what parallel with Evan. Jesus.
Well, it was. And again, understand, it wasn't like I made an outline and said, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
It was just so strange to me that I was just being led.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. It's
so
like,
cool.
Spirit, it is. It's with anything. Yeah. With anything, with your situation or others. I think it's important to always look for where you're being guided instead of staying in that like problem. Find, why is this happening? Where is it trying to lead me?
So Erik, or anybody, who was the voice? Who did it belong to? At least two times that you heard it. Was it one of your spirit guides? Was it?
I am sure it was one of my guides.
It was.
It was. Because that voice comes in every now and then. Now I seem to, I still hear those guides. And I've also been told I have 3 angels that stand behind me, and those could be my guides too.
Oh, yeah, could be.
But I don't I'm not picky. I know they're there. I can feel the love. But in the meantime, I was watching Channeling Erik.
Okay.
One of the things that brought me to your channel, of course, Elisa, was I thought, my God, when I heard the story about Erik, I thought that poor mother.
Yeah.
How on earth did he do that? And then I understood you wrote a book. So I researched all of that. And then I just started watching. Then when I started introspective hypnosis, guess who came through one day?
Uh-oh.
Here, on the same side that
oh, Erik.
And he wasn't pushy. He didn't have much to say, but it was as if he was telling me, I'm here to help you. Just don't worry about it. I'll take it from here. So, and I always see him with Evan. It's funny. I was telling Ginger, I see and feel my family, other family members and lost loved ones over here. But those two are always on this side. So,
Erik, I want to ask Erik a question. Erik, do you have some sort of special connection with Evan?
He does. He has a special connection with Evan because he also, there's a couple of reasons. He knew that this was going to lead JULIANNE to, meet you. And then from here, it's going to take off and do many things. But also because of the mental health, the connection to people with mental health and the issues here that we have. Plus, he feels like Erik's is like kind of like big brother, like guide and support, like he's got his arm around him, but there is a special connection. There's a special connection, I think, to everybody with channeling Erik too. I think that there is a connection with the people connected to channeling Erik and those working with channeling Erik. We were all brought here by Erik, you know?
I have two more
So,
questions for you, Erik, and then we'll stop interrupting. Uh, did you and Evan and Julianne have other lives together? Part of the like same soul family?
yeah, he said yes. He
Okay.
said yes. Hmm.
And also want to
Absolutely.
know, can you figure out what happened with Evan? I mean, not his death, but what did he have? Was it just a spiritual condition? I mean, nothing physical could be found. So how do you explain that?
What
That's
Erik is
that
saying is that yeah, he's saying that the technology that we have even now is not enough to see what was going on with Evan, but it was something that had to do with like chromosomes and the connection that they make, that we don't have a way to find testing, to find that in testing now. But he's saying that what happened, one of the things that's interesting about Evan's story is that was his purpose.
Yeah.
That was his purpose here, was the changes that was made, that, you made, and it was because of him and what he was going through. I mean, it's not his only purpose, of course. Its purpose is continuing to live on through you and the things that you do, Erik says, but that was his purpose. He came here to do, these things, make these changes, and then he went home.
It's so beautiful.
It took me a while to get there, because you can't feel spirit in the way you need to when you're first grieving so deeply. You're just in a funk for quite a while. But eventually I began to realize, Elisa, they think that possibly he had a mitochondrial disorder, which I don't want to bore.
That came to my mind, mitochondrial.
See,
maybe I channeled it. I don't know, but those are kind of hard to figure out. Maybe.
Well, and they couldn't, they kept trying to do all kinds of tests for that specifically and couldn't find that was definitively the issue. But
I don't think they didn't have I didn't mean to interrupt you, but Erik was just popping in saying they didn't have the detail of technology to see that within the cell. But I mean, there's something that wasn't enough, is how he's putting it. Like there wasn't enough of something within that cell.
That's exactly. And you, as you know, that's the factory. The mitochondrial has its own DNA, and it's the factory within each cell that gives the energy. So if you don't have that, and I know that they were studying some of his cells in his muscles, and they saw that there were a lot of immature mitochondria, but not a lot of mature mitochondria. So they were dying off at some point, but we never knew.
Autoimmune disease, was it like anti-mitochondrial?
It wasn't like anything was attacking it. They didn't. It was just for some reason they weren't developing and growing.
Reproducing. Erik says they weren't, like, how when our cells we lose skin cells or other cells in our body and we reproduce, they weren't reproducing fast enough as they were falling off. Is kind of the way he's putting it.
Right. So you can see going down that rabbit hole why, if I had stayed there and my guide hadn't come through and said, "Look, honey, this is about love and joy and healing," and had I not done that, I would have not had the 9.5 years I had with that little guy.
It gave him pleasure and
well, I mean, to think that he was nonverbal and yet was able to get some love in this state, and change some of the protocol within some of the school districts here and some of the elementary schools. And that was
clearly a healer.
Clearly, so, and then the other thing I started doing that Evan taught me was Jinshin, and that is a form of acupressure. It's like acupuncture, only the difference is acupuncture, when the needle goes in, it really forces that energy through the different meridians to unblock things. This is a little bit more gentle. It sort of lifts up the energy and supports it as it moves it through. And the way that it's done is you can feel in individuals' pulses what their body's calling for. Like they may come in and tell you, "Oh my gosh, my back is absolutely killing me." But then you do this introduction and then you feel their pulses, and then you discover, well, it's not really about their back. There's something much deeper that's going on, and it will guide me to tell where that energy needs to go and what's blocked. So
you have your intuition, right? You also have you have to channel this
Well,
information. Correct?
you do. I mean, you can go by the book, but that's luckily I'm able to use my intuition with that, and especially with hypnosis. That this modality of hypnosis is amazing because I have discovered, you sit with the client first and you do an introduction with them, and they explain to you who their loved ones are that are passed, who are with them now, what their childhoods would like, and you can start to get red flags as you're going through this sort of this introduction and this interview. And then by the time I start to put the client into trance, I already kind of know where they need to go. And often it's not about what they think it is. It's something much deeper. So that means that I may discover that they need to go back to the womb because something traumatic happened to them while they were in the womb. And they're able to, some individuals are able to see and feel that experience and describe what's going on. What they felt like physically, what they felt like emotionally, and what they felt like mentally. Some people, they need to be taken to a past life. Actually, I say they need to be taken. They take me to the past life.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, the client is always healing themselves. That's what's beautiful about this.
Amazing.
I am there to help facilitate their healing through their higher selves or their subconscious.
Very cool.
So it's just, it's beautiful. It's one of those things that when I finish and I have to say goodbye to the client, because I do most of it via Zoom, I have to literally go somewhere alone and sit and drink some tea or something for at least an hour, because my energy is different than any other energy that I ever experience here on this. So
It's like a clearing.
Interesting. Okay,
well, it is.
let me ask you this about your roots. Do you have starseed roots, Atlantean roots? I mean, maybe Erik can or anybody.
You do. I think you did. Did we go over that, or you said that you had a reading at one point that somebody had talked about? But you do. He says yes.
Evan told me we definitely were together on Pleiades.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Pleiadian starseed roots.
I know that when somebody just a week ago did a session on me, I ended up on Pleiades.
Wow.
And I saw some Pleiadians there, and they were very tall and very, very, very blonde and very beautiful, very Norwegian looking, Elisa. But they sort of had a bit of a blue tint to themselves. And what was really interesting is I looked right next to these Pleiades people that were saying, "Hi, how are you?" There were some ETs that were shorter and had this blue tinge too. So yeah, there's something there.
Yes. Yeah.
What about Atlantean past lives in your?
Erik says yes.
Okay.
Yes. Absolutely. This is so common in light workers, and not to say if you're not a starseed, you can't be a light worker, but it's very common, in light workers that they are starseeds, and there's just that deep connection, to source and other energies around you. Yeah.
Hence
because you've done it before.
You're very different energy that
we used to call it back in the day a divine guidance. But now, that vocabulary has changed a little bit. I think it's guides talking to us and helping us, but it's a beautiful thing to know that my spirits and the spirits of the client that I'm working with are right there to help me do for them exactly what they need. So you go into it with such love. Yeah. There's no fear. There's no apprehension. Oh, I hope I do this right. You just begin and it just flows. And that's spirit. It's an amazing thing.
Wow.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what is your typical client? Or can you even, not without divulging identities, give us some examples of?
Well, I will tell you that most people that come to me with issues with anxiety and depression, because that's rampant now. And I think that there's such an overflow of that right now is the technology, and technology is a good thing. technology and AI and all of that is a really good thing if we as human beings understand how to use it in the correct way. I've heard Erik say this too.
With any technology, right? I mean, with anything that can be dangerous, it's also can be helpful
Right.
if it's used right.
But it was bad before the pandemic, but it got a lot worse.
Mm.
People went back to work, but so many people are trying to figure out where they are now. After the pandemic, they began to really understand themselves a little bit more, and they began to have questions. What is my purpose in life? So I get, that's another question I get is, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing in my life. And of course, the first thing I want to say, well, you're supposed to be doing whatever you want to do in this life, but let's work together and see what that might be.
Yeah.
And so, and then well, let's see, I could give you an example. I had a client a few weeks ago who came to me and she said, I just want to find more joy in life. I'm happy, but I just feel like I'm not happy enough. And I thought, okay, well, that's sort of interesting. So I took her through the process, and she ended up a little girl, and she was about 6 years old at that time. And she was reliving a conversation that she watched her father have with her grandmother. And the father was telling the grandmother, I'm giving all my kids to you. Her mother had become a drug addict.
Mm-hmm.
He just didn't want to deal with it. And what was interesting, she had held a grudge against her mother. She's 38 years old now, for 30 years.
Yeah.
And she didn't realize at all that it was actually the father that gave all the kids up.
Oh, wow.
And, it sort of went from there. But when it was all done, she got to hear what the grandmother was saying to the father, what the father was saying, the reasoning.
Wow.
She realized, I had another woman who said she was here for no reason. She just wanted to see if there was something we needed to work on. I thought, oh, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
Oh.
Interestingly, she was a practitioner herself.
Mm.
She said she had had a couple of miscarriages. And in one case, the miscarriage, it was an ectopic pregnancy. So they had to remove one of the fallopian tubes and she was about my age, so she'd had many, many years to deal with this, and she'd been married and divorced, and it was okay. And then she realized suddenly she wasn't okay with it, and she was grieving deeply, deeply about this particular miscarriage.
Mm.
And throughout the process, she was just sobbing. So what we did is we rebuilt that fallopian tube, and I told her to choose a color that she would turn this into, and she chose pink.
Oh.
And we knew that was because it was a spirit of a little girl.
Oh.
And so she filled that cavity that had been so dark, and it created so much angst, and she didn't think she was sad. She thought she had dealt with all of this, but boom, there it was.
Wow.
And it again, when they come out of trance and you look at them and you can see, I don't see auras and colors, but I can sort of see a vibration around people.
Oh, yeah.
And when you see that when they're done, it's just the most amazing. You have so much gratitude that this process works for them.
That's cool that it can be done totally remotely.
Yeah. There are some modalities that don't allow that, like QHHT. Dolores was not interested in any technology whatsoever, so she doesn't allow practitioners to do that. But so I'm glad that I found this, because especially since the pandemic, and this way I can do it with people all over the world.
Yeah. But you also do things locally, right?
Oh yeah, I do it anywhere.
One-on-one.
Yeah. It used to be I did it more in person, but now I do it more via Zoom, because people can be in the comfort of their own home. They can lay down on their bed, get comfortable, close the door, and then there we go for 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. Erik was talking about how you were saying she didn't even realize she had something that she needed to work on. How so many of us, and I'm saying us, all of us on this planet, will think we've dealt with something because it's not at the surface, he says, but it's just been put away, ignored, not dealt with.
Swept under
And
the
that's
rug.
why, and that's why there's so many things that it causes, and that are you would call them symptoms of the problem. And once you get rid of that problem, those symptoms go away, he says. So it's pretty cool.
That is very cool. Wow.
Yeah.
Very fascinating.
Yes.
So what else would you like to share?
Well, just that I think that one of the reasons these types of healings are available now, as Ginger and Eric have explained to us, is because we're getting ready to go into a big shift
Mm,
process of going to 5D. A lot of us are already there. I think if you're watching this channel, you're there. Evan did come through at one point and told me, don't try to get to 5D physically, because then we'll have to transition and go to the other side.
Right.
As long as we're human beings, we have to stay physically in the 3D,
yeah. Yeah.
but spiritually, we're already there.
I got
Right.
you. Oh, I
Right.
see that.
It's. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say that's collectively what is happening with our Earth right now.
Yeah, and what I was going to say was collectively, the vibration is rising, and it's hard to know what is first. Is it because we're all rising, with our vibrations, or is it the planet rising in vibration to make us rise? So it's all happening at one time, and that's why you see more and more of this on mainstream, and it's more common now, and it's just going to continue to
People are
grow
just
and
waking
grow.
up. They're waking up
Yeah,
all over the
yeah,
place.
yeah. It's wonderful. It's
But
great.
doesn't
I
it
would-
cause certain ascension symptoms that are uncomfortable, right? Why is that? Is it an adjustment thing? You're trying to adjust to a different vibration?
Exactly.
Right.
The
You have to let
body,
go
the
of certain, you have to
mind.
let go. You have to let go of things. And sometimes
Oh.
that's uncomfortable for us humans, Eric, us
Let
humans,
go of certain relationships, for example, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Well, and
Certain
really,
beliefs.
Beliefs.
at the basis is fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can let go of fear and you can learn to trust, and you trust your higher self, trust that
That's,
there's
yeah,
love that is healing and guiding us
big
all
one.
to the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one. And I know that a lot of people have a hard time with that, including me sometimes, to let go and just trust.
I know.
The universe, instead of trying to be in, because it's a safety net when you feel like you're in control, even though that's an illusion that you're not, but it feels that way. And that's hard to accept, that you have to just let go and trust, sometimes. So, but
Because
when you do,
we're human beings, we
mhm,
still are human beings, and there's a reason we're in this skin, right?
right.
And it's a beautiful process, but it can be really tough. I've heard that Earth is one of the most difficult planets.
Absolutely. Heaviest, yes.
And that human beings are very much admired by other ETs.
Well, they're probably one suckers.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
So, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So how are you doing in your grieving process with Evan?
So, it's been since 2005. Okay, so that seems to be a long time. Because he's here and I can feel his presence so often, I'm much better, much better. But, and again, Elisa, I know you know this, there are certain memories and things that will cause you to fall on your knees to the floor.
Yeah.
I know this is a part of me that I'm just going to carry for the rest of my life.
That's how I feel too.
You're never going to get over it. There's no such thing as closure.
Mm-mm.
It's not a badge of honor to wear, but you are forever different because of this loss. Even though they're the right thing for you and you can hear them, and other psychics and mediums bring him through, it's not quite the same. You just want to hug them.
I want my hugs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brush your nose and your face up against their little face. So a lot of people, when they lose a child, they put the pictures up all over the house, and that is comforting to them.
Oh.
I could never do that, because every time I see a picture of him, it's really tough.
You remember what you're missing. You see what you're missing.
Yeah.
Me, I couldn't even go to iMemories and look at videos for a long time. For my husband, it was very healing. For me, I cannot. Or just seeing his favorite ice cream in the store, mint chocolate chips.
Oh, I know.
Things like that. All right. Are you able to scan people's energy, by the way, and look for blocks?
Yeah. So, again, part of the process is, after we do the interview and I do the induction, we have the client chooses a memory, a sad memory, unless they don't need to go to a sad memory and they need to go right away to a past life or something.
Okay.
They'll tell you where they need to go. But once we find the origin of whatever is going on that needs to be healed, we work on forgiveness, because that is huge. Forgiveness is one of the most important aspects of this process, is to learn to forgive.
And that's a kind of surrender in a
Right. Oh, right.
It is.
Yes.
And forgiveness is equated with love, right? So,
Yeah.
so that ultimately is there in the healing. And then before the client is brought out of the trance, that's when we do a body scan. And that's when you can find attachments, sometimes some malevolent body attachments, spirits that decided to hang on for the ride. I haven't seen too much of that myself. I did have a circumstance where there was an attachment to somebody who was a recovering drug addict.
Mhm.
And it turned out we were able to speak to this spirit. And it turned
Wow.
out that this spirit was a drug addict and died that way,
Oh, wow.
living vicariously through his spirit.
That's common. That's very common.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And we were able to help the spirit through love, make sure there was a forgiveness exchange from both of them. And the client was able to let the spirit go. Once the spirit was ready, you guide them back to source and
Interesting.
back to the light.
Yeah.
And
It's healing for both. Eric just said. He says it's
Wow.
healing for both.
It
Yeah.
is.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in the scalar work that I do, you get like 4 or 5% that have blocks. And, I know that Helena Nimick, for example, she will scan and see the scalar instructions right, ready to penetrate the auric field, just blocked. So what is that all about? And what can we, and usually it's a thought form, like this will work for everybody but me, or it's too good to be true, or, I'm not worthy of getting better. But can you speak to that thing?
I was going to say really quick, Elisa. I just wanted to say really quick. Usually, that starts sometimes in another life or childhood. So I'm interested to see
Yeah.
what Julian has to say.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right. So,
Yeah.
there was somebody that came to me that had a blocked throat chakra.
Mm.
And they were always coughing, and they were always they had a hard time speaking up. Well, so turns out this individual had a past life, and they were hung. And they were hung
Mm.
because they were helping others to heal using different kind of herbs and things back in the 70s.
Oh boy.
Yep.
So there was that whole thing. Another
Yeah.
person, I didn't do this case myself, but there was another individual that I observed the session going on where this individual was burned at the stake.
Mm.
And during the trance, they were coughing, and
Oh,
they had to allow themselves to cough up all that smoke. And
yeah.
Mm.
so those blockages, going back to that, to my client who was hung, they couldn't speak out. This lady had a hard time standing up for herself. She had a hard time speaking out.
Mm.
And we realized that, this had a lot to do with it. It also had to do.
Mhm.
So there's things like that, that can be blocking them. Genshin is more of a physical block, So if the flow is not able to allow the kidney to do what it needs to do, or
Oh,
the
yeah.
liver, or those sorts of things.
Right.
But this is more of a spiritual. You can go and visit and understand what your spirit contracts were back then.
Mhm.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
So how could you give me an example of how you could help my scalar clients? Because I don't want them to repeat the service. All they need is a block removed, and then the stuff will flow in. Right?
Well, I think that you're right. I think it would be best for me to see them first
Yeah.
and to talk to them, because that's the other thing that Evan taught me is, boy, we don't listen.
Mm.
We just don't listen.
Well,
And there's
the doctors didn't listen to you guys, so yeah. Which
right.
Right.
It's not just about the words that the individual is talking about. It's their body language. It's how they twitch their foot, how they are moving their knee constantly. you listen to them, and their spirit will begin to speak on top of what they're saying. So they would, for example, if they wanted to do a scalar healing, they would come to me, and we could discuss probably what specific package they wanted through scalar healing, what it was they needed healing for. And then we could explore that and see if there was something there, so that when they went through the scalar, when you performed the scalar healing on them, ultimately they would be able to accept that. Because people, I've discovered too, there's a lot of lower self-esteem out there within.
Yeah.
Self-loathing.
Not worthy.
No,
Yeah.
not worthy.
Not worthy. And when you don't have that self-worthiness, then you're blocking everything. You're just saying, no, I'm not worthy of being healed. So I'm going to stay in this little area for the rest of my life. Yet they want healing. So, and I have to say that I have used your scalar healing twice, and it's been absolutely amazing. Absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah. I have a question, real quick. So there are people that maybe don't come to see you first because they're just, people that will decide, no, I'm fine. I can do, because they feel fine. No, I'm just going to go do the scalar. You can. Yeah.
Yes.
We're on the same wave here. Yeah. So afterwards, it's the same thing, right? After they do the scalar and you do this clearing, and since Helena says it's just sitting there waiting, then you can do that afterwards too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can do it anytime. And here's the thing.
Yeah.
If you trust the process, it'll happen exactly the way it's supposed to happen.
Yes.
They're supposed to come here first, they'll come here first. If they're supposed to do scalar healing first, they're supposed to do that first. So
yeah, right.
They just, again,
Absolutely.
about the trust and the knowing,
Right.
and just feeling that incredible amount of love that is around you all the time.
I send people a lot of love in the scalar field. It's very rewarding.
It's a beautiful therapy. And, because of your scalar healing, Elisa, I started reading as much as I could about quantum physics and energy, and of course, Tesla.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Fascinating stuff. It's all physics. It's
And
all physics.
What this world could have if we were able to use, he was able to utilize energy to the point where if the government probably hadn't gotten a hold of him and shut him down, we'd probably be able to heat and provide electricity to our homes.
Absolutely. 0 point energy. It'd be, he made a scalar, he was able to make a scalar field to this Colorado. He was able to give electricity to all of Colorado Springs with just one thing.
Right.
It made a scalar car that would never stop. It kept on going and going. So
yeah. But had he come through, look what it would have done to big business.
Right. That's why it was stopped.
Big oil didn't want. No, what was it?
Agreed.
Morgan said, if you can't put a meter on it, then we're not doing it.
Right. That's so true.
So how can people get in touch with you?
Well, they can go to my website. It's www.JULIANNETHON.com. It's pretty easy. And it'll explain more of what it is, and then also what to expect in a session, because I think that's important, because people who haven't done this before, they're a little intimidated by the process, and nothing to be intimidated about. It's sort of like, usually people remember everything that happens. If they go to a somnambulistic state, then they're out, and
whatever that is.
That's the deepest state of trance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they go to sleep. Yeah, they're out of it.
That's cool.
But see, I record everything.
Oh,
so
good.
We're able to
good.
recording to refer back to it, and they're just amazed. They're like, "Wow, I can't believe that happened to me."
I was just going to say, I bet that it's a lot, it feels a lot safer too, being in their own environment to do it. I bet it's a lot more where they're more relaxed, able to relax and open up more to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It really helps. It really does.
Well, to close this off, I think you should be a part of the team in the Atlanta Scalar. We have a tab called The Team. And Julianne, if you look at what people have, put in there, the others, then, you can give Lucas, my son Lucas, something to copy and paste into the page, and we'll direct people to you.
Yeah. She's also on my site too, under other resources too. So You
Okay,
know,
good. Awesome.
Anywhere you need to go, to find her. So she'll
Sounds
be there.
awesome.
So
Yep.
thank you again for having me. And
Thank
gosh,
you
it was
for
an
being
honor to
you.
be able to speak to all of your peeps, as you call them.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
You
love
know,
them.
I would love, and I've actually seen this, Elisa. I wonder how it'll manifest itself. But in the future, I see you sort of having a gathering for all of your followers and
That'd be nice.
telling
We've had people come to my house and mediums didn't want to pay for a venue. So I said, well, just use my house, And but we haven't done that for a long time. The last one, I
you
won't
can,
mention her name, but she left the house in a mess. She said, I gotta go to there. Whatever. And it was just we had to hire people to clean and
oh no.
yeah, and
Yeah,
I
there
don't
would
accept any money for it, obviously. It was for free. But
right.
yeah, but they're always so impactful that I don't know if I can
No, we would do it at a venue if we did it
yeah,
again.
yeah.
We wouldn't put that pressure on
Maybe
you.
we'll travel have a cruise, channeling her
You
cruise.
know, Alba Weinman, she is, it's almost impossible to even get a session with her. She sends out a newsletter and you have to get on immediately and make the appointment, and people are dying to go, but she won't accept people twice because she's so busy.
Oh
So
wow.
she's doing that, but she's also now traveling around the world and she's having gatherings in different countries. And it's nice because like-minded people are there.
Yeah. That'd be
Yeah,
Uh,
and it helps, I think, for those who can't see her,
yeah.
who can't individually see her.
But
That does help.
I'm not a good organizing. I would need help with that. Somebody
that's
to
why you have an assistant.
yeah, that's right. That's right. All right. Well, thank you. And Eric, by the way, I still love you. Thank you, Ginger.
I love you, Mom.
And I love
Thank
everyone out
you.
there. Hit the subscribe button, please.
Love
And
you.
the notification.
See you
Bye.
guys.
Love you guys.
Bye,
Bye.
Julianne.
Honored to
Thank you.
meet you. Honored to meet you.
Thank you again. It's an honor to meet you too. And it's so good to see you again, Ginger.
Yeah, you too.